You guys have probably seen these fascinating coins, and you're probably thinking either of one of two things. You know what? That's some man-made damage. Like someone had melted copper or solder on the coin, and then over time it just looks like a raised blob of metal on there, which could be the case. However, it could very well be a legitimate die error in which these are extremely valuable. And if you see a coin like this Lincoln Memorial cent, it's a 74D with the if you see the strange blob of metal at the base of Lincoln's bust, then it could be either one of those two things. So let's just put it out there right now. If your coin looks like this and you found one in pocket change, which by the way, these are out there in varying degrees of sizes, I could tell you right now that this particular coin is not man-made damage. The terminology for this type of mint error is called a cud. That's kind of like the slang term for what we would consider a major die break. The simple explanation for a die break is after prolonged usage and the die gets to this point in its lifetime where it's called terminal. It's simply a state of the die. Terminal dies would have various types of cracks and various little cuds and die chips and that sort of thing. But when you have a coin like this with a sizable blob, that corresponds to a sizable chunk of the die falling off. Now a cud, much like the one that you see here, typically would involve the edge of the coin. So if you have a major break like this, a big blob that's close to the edge of the coin, that's where the terminology cud comes into play. If you see something this big on the interior, like on, you would find Lincoln cents with die breaks in his forehead or in the date. Those would typically either be called die chips, depending on the size if they're tiny, or they could be called interior die breaks. Again, these types of coins sell for a premium. Now, if you were to find a 74D, much like the example that you see here before you, it's an easy $20 to $30 coin in this condition. They are sellable, guys. So if you do come across one and it looks like something like, oh, you know what, some guy probably was just experimenting in his garage with a soldering iron, and yeah, it's a legitimate error. Now, if you're unsure of the legitimacy of the error, then it's definitely something that maybe you should post on a forum chat page or a Facebook group to get a second opinion. Now, this is a great example of a Lincoln cent. It's where you're going to find most of your examples of a cud or a die break. Now, here's a Jefferson nickel. It's a 72D. Again, during the 70s, there was a lot of these coins that existed with these die breaks or cuds. The 72D is a much larger size and it's in a different position. Now, these coins can exhibit die breaks that can affect half the coin. That's how major it gets. And usually if you have a legitimate cud or die break, one way to tell that it is real and authentic is if you flip the coin over to look at the reverse, you'll have the weakening of the devices in that very area where the cud is shown on the front of the coin. So if you take the coin, let's say the big die break is on the front of the coin with Jefferson. If you flip the coin over, you should have the weakness in that same position on the reverse. That's a good way of kind of telling apart if you have something real or fake. So in the case of this Jefferson nickel, the price goes up tremendously because number one, it's a much sizable, much larger die break. Number two, it's on a different denomination. I had alluded to that these cud die breaks are easiest to find in the Lincoln cents. If you were to find one in the nickels, Roosevelt dimes, quarters, they're worth quite a bit more money. Now, if you did find one much like this On a nickel, you'd be talking about a coin that's somewhere between $50 and $100, real easy. Now, a good rule of thumb to keep in mind when you're trying to determine a value on these error coins is really think about the size of the cud. Because the larger the size of the cud, the least likely that you'll find them out in circulation, because they're such an oddity, they're an oddball type of coin that people, as soon as they find it in their pocket change, they'll pull it right out. Whereas the smaller ones, like on that Lincoln cent, or maybe to a lesser extent this Jefferson nickel, will be one that would just easily pass through. People wouldn't think anything of it. It would look like damage. They don't want it. They're just going to spend it. So the lesson in all this, when you're looking through change, there's another thing for you to look at, to find, and that's the die break cuds. I want to thank you guys for joining and watching this fantastic episode. Hopefully it was educational. If that's the case, please give me a thumbs up, hit the like button. Feel free to share this on your favorite social media site. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Lots of new content going up every day. If you do subscribe, you will get the instant notifications of a new upload. So again, it's my pleasure. I thank all of you for joining. I'm your host, Blue Ridge Silverhound, and I am out for the evening. You guys take care, and I'll see you later.